known female serial killer. It's the murder trial of Aileen Wuornos as Serial Killer Week continues. When we think of serial killers, we usually picture white males, Gacy, Dahmer, or even the fictional Hannibal Lecter, but never a woman. Well, the trial we are about to see may change all that. Tara has a new face, a new gender. Her name is Aileen Wuornos, and according to the state of Florida, she has confessed to 7 killings. Prosecutors say Wuornos was a prostitute who would murder and then rob her clients. Now she's on trial for one of those killings, the death of 51-year-old Richard Mallory, a killing she claims was done in self-defense. For more on this case, here's a report from Court TV's Beth Karras.
How was I able to get away with 7 murders so easily when I was a hitchhiking hooker on the highway?
Aileen Wuornos admits killing 7 men, but says she acted in self-defense each time. The FBI calls Wuornos the first known female serial killer.
Aileen Carol Wuornos liked control. She had been exercising control for years over men.
Richard Mallory, a 51-year-old video store owner, was found dead near Daytona Beach, Florida on December 13, 1989. Wuornos, a longtime prostitute, hitchhiked along north central Florida's highways to find clients who became victims. According to a confession Wuornos gave after her arrest, Mallory picked her up near Tampa. They talked and drank as they drove east toward Daytona. Wuornos offered to have sex with Mallory for money. She says he agreed, then became violent.
Richard Mallory never even kissed and hugged me. He did that one after he was raping me.
Prosecutors contend Wuornos is a cold-blooded serial killer. They say she intentionally selected middle-aged white men, killed them, and then robbed them.
I think she's a controller. I think she's a manipulator. But the desire to control, I think, has gone the limit now. That desire moved over into the area of taking lives.
Wuornos' former lover, Tyra Moore, once considered a suspect in the case, cooperated with prosecutors. She says Wuornos told her about killing Mallory.
She just come out and said, "I have something to tell you." And I asked her what, and she said that she had shot and killed a man that day.
Wuornos' closest ally during the trial was Arlene Praley. Praley didn't even know Aileen Wuornos, but after seeing her photo in the newspaper, Praley befriended the alleged serial killer. Soon after, Praley, a born-again Christian, adopted Wuornos as her daughter.
She's pretty well worn from all of this, but she's doing well. She feels God is in control. We have a good judge, we have a fair jury, and we have the best public defenders in the world. So I do believe we're going to do okay. God will do a miracle.
Well, we shall see. Over the course of 2 days, we'll be covering this trial. We're going to begin now with opening statements by the prosecution. John Tanner will be delivering the opening statement for the prosecution. And again, he's going to describe what he calls a predatory prostitute. Let's go into the court.
Aileen Carol Wuornos is charged with murder in first degree by premeditation and by committing robbery, felony murder, as well as armed robbery. The evidence that we believe will be revealed during this trial over the next several days show that on November the 30th, 1989, a little over 2 years ago, Richard Mallory, age 51, turned east onto I-4, the interstate highway, near Tampa. He didn't know that he was living the last day of his life. He didn't know that in less than 10 hours, he would be robbed and murdered, and his body would be left to rot in the woods. Of course, he didn't know that he was about to pick up a predatory prostitute who had had sex with over 250,000 men.
You plan to sustain this with testimony?
We do, Your Honor. Of course, he didn't know that he was about to pick up a predatory prostitute who had had sex with over 250,000 men by her own admissions. He didn't know that he was about to admit and meet and admitted to his car Eileen Carol Warnes, the woman who sits at this table, whose appetite for lust and control had taken a lethal turn. And she was no longer satisfied with just taking men's bodies and their money. Now she wanted the ultimate control.
Your Honor, I have to object. I believe the prosecutor is engaging in final argument.
Well, I don't believe so yet, so the objection is noted and overruled, and let's make a decision right now, and that decision is only going to be one counsel object. I'm not going to have all three of them jumping up and down, so have one spokesman speak for your group.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Thank you. She now wanted the ultimate control. She wanted all that Mr. Mallory had. His car, his property, and his life. The next day, Deputy Sheriff found Mr. Mallory's automobile abandoned in the woods north of Ormond Beach. Approximately 2 weeks later, on December the 13th, I found Mr. Mallory on the west side of the river, opposite side of the river, north of Ormond Beach. They found him covered with a carpet. His face, head had begun to decompose, so identification was not readily apparent at that time. They found 4 bullet holes in his body. They found his pockets turned inside out. He was fully clothed, and his pants were zipped. Ms. Warnes had shot and killed Mr. Mallory, taken his property, gone through his pockets, and covered him up, and then returned to her motel, where her lesbian lover, best friend, Tyree Moore, and she used the car to remove their property to another residence. Shortly thereafter, she told Tyree Moore she killed Mr. Mallory, and that it was his automobile that she had used, they had used, to move the property. Ultimately, on January the 16th of 1991, approximately a year ago, she gave a complete statement after being advised of her constitutional rights, having had a lawyer's summons to protect her rights. She told Deputy Sheriff Larry Porzeppa of the Volusia County Sheriff's Office several stories as to how the killing took place.
Stories, Your Honor. Section overruled.
All of the stories agree on a few points. She says that she was hitchhiking along the interstate, just east of Tampa, heading in an easterly direction, when she was picked up by Mr. Mallory on November the 30th, 1989. She says they traveled on the interstate across the state towards the Daytona Beach area, and while traveling, they drank and talked. In all of her stories, she says that she solicited him for an act of prostitution, saying that she needed money for her rent. In her story, she says that he was wearing blue jeans and a shirt. And without exception, she says they began hugging and kissing after having found a place to park in the woods north of Daytona Beach, and that they were having a good time, and that it was her intent to engage in sex with him for money. In the first story, she says that Mr. Mallory paid her in advance, but that she became concerned that he might try to take the money back. And therefore, she jumped out of the automobile and pulled from her bag a gun, a pistol, that she'd only had for approximately 2 days. She told him to get out of the automobile and step away. And then she changed her story. But no, he's innocent. What's the story, Ron?
Objection overruled.
He stayed in the car, and then she didn't tell him to get out, but she shot him in the automobile while he's sitting behind the wheel. Doesn't remember whether she shot him 2 or 3 times. But in any event, she ultimately killed him.
She did indeed, and now she is on trial for murder, the first suspected female serial killer. We'll be back with that in just a moment. Right now, we do need to take a quick break, but first, let's take a look today at today's 13th juror question. The defendant, Eileen Wuornos, is on trial for killing Richard Mallory, but she has confessed to 6 other alleged murders. Should the jury know about the other killings? Today, our question to you is, should jurors be told Wuornos allegedly has committed 6 other murders? Now, we want to know what you think. Log on to courttv.com right now and vote. We will update the results throughout the day. We'll be right back. Please stay with us.
On Crier Today, the sex industry's money-making run with credit card users may come to an end. We'll find out why when Larry Flint's daughter joins us live. Plus, a mother's riveting story of her twin son serving more than 15 years behind bars for cocaine distribution. She claims they were framed. And Sheriff Joe Arpaio, live from the GOP National Convention in Philadelphia. Join me for Crier Today at 1 p.m. only on Court TV.
Have their own moisturizers, natural tears. So we took essential ingredients found in natural tears, added more moisturizers than any leading eye drop, and put them in Visine Tears. Visine Tears replenishes our eyes' natural moisture, bringing soothing relief to dry, scratchy eyes. Visine Tears, it gets the dry out. And now there's Visine for contacts. It re-wets lenses and refreshes your eyes.
Stop ironing the old-fashioned way. Push, pull, back and forth, or ironing in more wrinkles. Introducing the revolutionary Wonder Steamer, the time and money-saving steamer that's like a magic wand for wrinkles. Watch the amazing power of the Wonder Steamer make wrinkles just fall away. Just fill your Wonder Steamer with ordinary tap water, add a touch of salt, and within 15 seconds, you're steaming the wrinkles away. It's so fast and easy, you'll never use an ordinary iron and ironing board ever again. The Wonder Steamer is completely safe. It will never burn, scorch, melt, or leave that ugly iron shine. Look, even a balloon won't burn. Get rid of the wrinkles in all your clothes. Cotton, linen, wool, clothes with glitter and appliques. It's so safe you can even steam 100% silk. Just steam over beads, buttons, and sequins. Get a professional crease in seconds the easy way. Ever try to iron curtains? Now steam away the wrinkles while the drapes and shears are still hanging. It's so lightweight and compact. The versatile Wonder Steamer goes with you anywhere. You'll save lots of money too. And now the incredible Wonder Steamer can be yours for only $19.95. But wait, as a special bonus, we'll include this textured fabric brush. You wouldn't iron velour, but just attach the textured fabric brush. Velour, velvet, suede, and even upholstery will look brand new. There's more. Order the Wonder Steamer within the next 20 minutes, and we'll include this fantastic lint magnet free. Just roll it to pick up the toughest to remove lint. Then simply rinse off, and it's ready again. We'll also include the amazing clutter-free hanger system free. The Wonder Steamer comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee and an incredible lifetime warranty.
To order your Wonder Steamer, call 1-800-479-6325. Order in the next 20 minutes and receive the textured fabric brush, the fantastic lint magnet, and the amazing clutter-free hanger system absolutely free. So call 1-800-479-6325 and order today.
As we continue to delve deeper into the minds of serial killers, today we are looking at something new. A female serial killer, according to the FBI, Eileen Wuornos, is one of the first female serial killers and definitely the first to use a weapon. Now, all other recorded female serial killers have been of the mercy-killing variety and did not use traditional weapons like a gun. Wuornos' odyssey, along with that of her lover, Tyria Moore, has been called a much darker version of the movie Thelma and Louise, starring Susan Sarandon and Gina Davis. I'm sure many of you have seen it. According to authorities, Wuornos and Moore, like the two fictional characters, took off on a road trip across Florida. They were in love, Wuornos obsessively so, it seemed, taking on the world and surviving in their own way on their own terms. But part of that survival may have included a number of killings, 7 in all, probably more, all with pretty much the same MO, modus operandi, or the way they were done. Older men who appeared to have solicited sex from Wuornos, and they end up dead, robbed on the side of the road. Now, cops finally followed the trail of blood and tracked down the pair, turning lover against lover to make a case they hope will send Wuornos to the electric chair. We're going to go back into the courtroom now and continue with opening statements from the prosecution. Prosecutor John Tanner is doing the honors. Let's go back into the courtroom.
The next story she told during the same interview, same officer, was again that she solicited money. But this time, she said that they've been drinking and talking and having fun for about 5 hours, parked in the woods north of Ormond Beach. And that she decided he was a nice guy. And that she usually wanted her money in advance. But he was such a nice guy that she didn't think she really needed to get the money in advance. And then they began to move towards the ultimate act of having sex. But he wouldn't take his clothes off. He wanted to just unzip his pants. And she didn't like it that way. And they began to argue and struggle a little bit about it. And she got out of the car and said, "No, you're not going to just fuck me. You're going to pay me." And then she shot him as he sat behind the wheel. In both stories, as she talks about the killing, she admits he was sitting in the automobile, behind the wheel, fully clothed, when she shot him. And that she was out of the automobile with a loaded 9-shot revolver in his hand, and he with no weapon whatever. She says that after she shot him in the front seat, he crawled out the driver's door and shut the door. Because on the other side of that doorway was a woman who was pumping bullets into it. She says he crawled out the door. And then she ran around to the front of the car. It's difficult to imagine, but she shot him again. And he fell to the ground, and she shot him again. The evidence will give several explanations as to why she killed Richard Mallory. She told the deputy she didn't really understand why she shot him. She also said, well, it's because he didn't pay me. And she also said, well, it's because he was going to try to take the money back. And also because he wouldn't take his pants off. She didn't want to have sex that way. From her statements, you know that he was targeted because he was middle-aged, and according to her, it wouldn't make much difference. She killed him because he didn't have any parents. Guess that means
Objection. That's no rule.
the real reason, as you sort out the evidence in its totality, are not all that complex. She says she doesn't really know why she killed him, but the evidence tells you why she killed him. She killed him out of greed. She was no longer satisfied with $10 or $20 or $40. She wanted all. And she had to take it. And she did. And she used a gun to take it. And she shot him to keep it. She also told the deputy that she needed to kill him dead, not just shoot him, because she didn't want to leave a witness. And she had a very practical reason for that position. She said, after all, I'm a professional road highway prostitute. And if I didn't kill him, I couldn't go back out on the highway. They would find me. She might have had to find another way to make a living. And she didn't want to be caught. And she wanted to be certain that there was no way that she could be punished and held responsible for killing this man in cold blood and robbing him. Intent, she said that she intended to let him die. Ultimately, and the bottom line is, the evidence in its totality would show that Eileen Carroll Warnes liked control. She had been exercising control for years over men. Tremendous power possessed through prostitution.
Objection sustained on that.
She had devised a plan now and carried it out to have the ultimate control. All that Richard Mallory had, she took, including his life. And under the law, she must pay with her life.
Objection.
So there you see prosecutors asking for the death penalty for Eileen Warnes for her crime, her murder. Let me turn quickly to my guest this morning. I'm joined by Robert ALTCHILER, and again, he is a very good friend of mine. Very happy to have him with me. It's been a while since you've been here. He's a criminal defense attorney and also an adjunct professor of trial advocacy at Pace University. So I want to thank you very much for being with me, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right, good to see you again. Let's start off by just trying to get to the heat of the heart of this thing, and that is basically, you know, this case is a single murder, but the bottom line is, as a defense attorney, you would be representing someone who prosecutors and pretty much the press considers a serial killer. Very serious. Is there a difference in the way you approach the case as a result?
There's a difference, one, because of the publicity, which you have to minimize at every corner, but it's also harder to defend a case like this because if you have a series of killings and the prosecutors are going to be allowed to introduce evidence of those killings, you obviously have to fight not only each of the battles concerning each of the murders, but also the suspicion, the strong suspicion and the inclination that the jurors will have to think, well, there is smoke here, so there must be fire. So yes, it's much more difficult.
Yeah, the deal is also that it is a death penalty case, so I think also you'd be thinking as a defense attorney right off the bat that mitigating circumstances are going to play a big role in your case, because again, you do have to deal with this sort of heavy evidence that they have against her, both in terms of the individual case in front of her, but as well as those other cases that they might be able to bring in evidence of.
You're right. I mean, you're fighting, this is a full-time job. You're fighting many battles at the same time. In this case, there is evidence of mitigation. There's also substantial evidence concerning the aggravating factors as well. So yes, you're concerned with eventually what the punishment could be, and there'll be a separate death penalty phase after a guilty verdict. But every step along the way, you're fighting the battle to have a not guilty, but also prevent the death penalty from being imposed.
Yeah. What are some of the issues facing prosecutors in terms of getting this other evidence in? I mean, it would seem to be extremely prejudicial, but there are some rules governing the idea that prosecutors can bring in evidence of other crimes, even though she may not be convicted of those crimes.
In the typical criminal trial, prosecutors are not allowed, generally, to bring in evidence of the defendant's bad character. The thinking is that a person sitting in the defendant's chair has enough against, him at a trial or her at a trial, so that the jury should just decide a case based on the evidence. But there are certain exceptions, and those are the exceptions that the prosecutors are looking to use in this particular case. If there is a narrow theory of relevance tending to make that type of evidence important, a judge can allow it. Narrow theories of relevance, according to the United States Supreme Court, include if this other evidence tends to show the identity of the perpetrator, if it tends to disprove that it was actually a mistake or an accident, or, as is the case here, and they've gone many different theories here, but if it tends to show an MO or modus operandi. And in order for it to be appropriate evidence to bring in against the defendant in this case, they would have to show that there is a sufficient nexus. In other words, if the crimes in the past that are uncharged in this case are similar, sufficiently similar to the crime at the bar, then prosecutors might be able to get it into evidence.
Sure, and it's interesting to note, I want to tell our viewers that leading up to the arrest in this particular murder of Richard Mallory, cops had been baffled by a series of similar crimes, about 6 of them, men they found dead on the side of the road in very similar fashion, and they all attributed those to Eileen Wuornos when she was caught, and then she did confess. So it's that type of thing that may be brought in front of the jury, which may ultimately be the death knell for Eileen Wuornos in this case. We'll have to wait and see. Right now, we're going to take a quick break. We'll have much, much more on the other side. Please stay with us.
Court TV tonight.
There's a sniper on the roof!
They thought he was dead. They were dead wrong. The conclusion of City Under Siege, tonight at 8 and midnight. This week, stars who made it to the top.
Cars, cash, women!
And came crashing down.
I couldn't put the fires out.
Catch 5 nights of back-to-back Hollywood and crime.
I'm back and I am back.
This week, beginning at 7, only on Court TV.
Some desire fame. Some want thrills. Some are filled with hate. Court TV presents 5 mugshots of murderers among us.
He felt that Satan would always protect him. He'd never get caught.
On Serial Killers Week. Continues tonight at 10.
Now, every time you brush, you can get a massage. The new Crest Advanced Care toothbrush has multi-level cleaning bristles, plus soft massaging tips to help keep gums healthy. New Advanced Care from Crest.
Crime.com. Information, news, and entertainment.
I love working here. It's exciting, feeling like we're changing things for the better. At Zurich Direct, there are no surprises. You call us and we give you a free quote on high-quality term life insurance with no strings attached. And these rates are up to 70% less than what some other insurers charge. I mean, why pay more than you have to?
Hi, thank you for calling Zurich Direct. This is Wendy. How may I help you?
It really is simple.
Well, Mr. Madden, you're 42 in good health and you don't smoke? That's great. A 10-year, $250,000 policy is just $23 a month, and your rate is guaranteed.
Everybody has questions when they call in. They want to know they're doing business with the right company. You'd be amazed how many letters we get from people just saying thanks.
Well, you can choose a 5, 10, 15, or 20.
Coverage can start in just a few
weeks. Sure, I can help you with that. I'll just...
Absolutely. I think everyone should call Zurich Direct. But then again, I'm probably a little partial.
Call 1-888-361-TERM. Zurich Direct, a unit of Zurich Kemper Life.
Try this. Call up your auto insurance company and ask them to give you a quote.
And then ask them to give you the prices of their 3 major competitors also.
See what they say.
Progressive wants you to know that 6-month rates can really vary from company to company.
On average, you could be paying $522 more than you have to.
If you're not shopping around, you could be losing a lot of money.
Call Progressive at 1-800-AUTOPRO or visit us online at progressive.com.
We'll give you our price, and if you'd like, the rates from up to 3 other leading companies.
Even if their prices are lower than ours.
I didn't believe it either, but it's true. I can go online 24 hours a day and compare rates.
We have these things called ERVs, immediate response vehicles.
It's like a mini claims office right there in the car.
So call us right now at 1-800-AUTO-PRO.
If we can't save you money on auto insurance, we'll tell you who can.
Shop and buy at Progressive.com or call 1-800-AUTO-PRO.
Even though I killed all those men, that does not, the principle, nobody's looking at the principle here. Nobody's looking at my life. Nobody's looking at what's my life and what's my life about.
Eileen Wuornos admits to killing 7 men, but now she says she was only protecting herself. Welcome back. I'm Michael Ayala. Born and raised in Michigan, Eileen Wuornos was abandoned by her biological mother. She and her brother were then adopted by maternal grandparents. At the age of 14, she was reportedly raped. She got pregnant. The child was given up for adoption. At 16, she was living on the streets, abusing alcohol and drugs. She took to selling her body to support her habit and just to survive. Now, she claims that she has been raped 10 to 12 times while prostituting. She even tried to commit suicide by shooting herself in the stomach. She's been convicted once of armed robbery, and now she stands trial for murder. All this from a woman who doctors once described as being very, very intelligent. Now, we will return to the murder trial of this alleged serial killer in just a moment. But first, I do want to go down to the Court TV News Center, where Helen Lukatis is standing by with our first look at the day's legal news. Good morning, Helen.
Good morning, Michael, and good morning, everyone. Look for protesters to make their presence felt again today in Philadelphia as the Republican National Convention continues. Yesterday, some 280 demonstrators were arrested, but caused little inconvenience for convention goers. A number of officers and protesters suffered minor injuries in the clashes, including City Police Commissioner John Timoney, who had a bike thrown at him. Police in Boulder, Colorado are going to take a second look at evidence in the JonBenet Ramsey case. They're running tests to see if there's a connection between JonBenet's murder and an attempted sexual assault on another girl months later. A 14-year-old girl who attended the same dance academy as JonBenet was assaulted in her bed in 1997. The Boulder police chief says he doubts that there is a connection. The Ramsey parents remain under suspicion in the murder of their daughter. A World Health Organization report accuses Big Tobacco of plotting to undermine worldwide anti-smoking efforts. The report suggests tobacco companies secretly funded supposedly independent research on the issue and infiltrated international anti-smoking campaigns. Officials of Philip Morris and British American Tobacco say they may have had a bad relationship with the health agency in the past, but insist that they are working to change that. Attorney General Janet Reno says the government is sending a message to anyone involved in making and selling methamphetamine. Reno says the arrests of 140 people accused of being part of a coast-to-coast drug ring demonstrates the government's resolve to fight illegal drugs. The ring allegedly was headed by a group of 10 people who called themselves the Commission and funneled their profits to the Middle East. Serious trouble for the United States Olympic bobsled team. Their hopes for medals in the year 2002 may have been shattered today because thieves took some critical equipment. The team discovered 11 runners missing. Now, runners are metal strips that attach to the bottom of the sled and touch the ice. Team members spent 2 years building the sled and say the runners cannot be replaced. A court hearing examiner in New York is demanding that Mick Jagger show him the money. The examiner denied the rocker's request to be exempted from revealing his finances in a child custody case. 2 months ago, Jagger was ordered to pay temporary child support of $10,000 a month to model Luciana Murad, the mother of his child. She says Jagger can't afford more and is asking for $30,000 a month. Well, that's all for now from the Court TV News Center. I'm Helen Lukatis. Now let's go back to Michael Ayala in the studio. Michael?
Thank you very much, Helen. We return to that courtroom in Florida. Now we're going to get to hear Eileen Wuornos' side as her attorney is going to begin delivering her opening statements to the jury. Her name is Tricia Jenkins. So let's go into the courtroom to hear what she has to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is going to show that when Eileen Wernes jumped into the car with Richard Mallory on that rainy night in December of 1989, she had no idea that she was going to be traveling with him into a nightmare, and that ride would ultimately bring her into this courtroom today. The evidence will show that on the day that she met Richard Mallory, she had been to Fort Myers. She had received 6 rides on her way back. It was getting late and she was real tired. She stopped near the interstate I-4 and 75, and it was raining. So she got under the overpass in order to stay out of the weather until it would clear up. She was standing in the shadows. As she was standing in the shadows, a car passed by. She saw the lights. She saw it pull over. And then it began to back towards her through the dark. You will hear that she was frightened. Because of the weather and because of the darkness, she couldn't tell who was in the car. She couldn't tell if it was a car full of guys or what it was. She didn't think she could be seen there. You are going to hear evidence that Lee has been on her own since she's been a very small child. You will hear that she's been living on the roads. You're going to hear that she's a prostitute, living from one highway exit to the next. You're also going to hear that home for her, as the prosecutor has indicated to you, is a motel. When times are good, she rents a motel by the week. When they're lean, she rents them by the day. You're also going to hear that times were changing out on the roads. Existence for Lee was getting to be very dangerous. The frequency with which she met physical abuse was escalating. Remember, she started on the roads when she was a young girl. Things were changing. Time after time after time, she was raped. Time after time after time, she was beaten up and she wasn't paid. Finally, she armed herself. This night that Richard Mallory stopped on the side of the road and backed towards her, she was making a decision. Do I try to get darker, get back farther in the shadows? Do I try to hide, or do I wait and see and possibly someone that can give me a ride, someone that I'll feel safe with? Well, ultimately, he asked her if she wanted to go with him and go for a ride. But he was going all the way to Daytona, and that's where she was trying to go. She knew that her very best friend, her roommate, the person that she was helping to support, would be waiting for her and would be wondering why she was out so late. She was happy that she had just one ride now that would take her all the way to Daytona, because, as I said before, it had taken her 6 rides to get from Fort Myers to the side of the road where Richard Mallory stopped to pick her up. So they began to travel towards Daytona. You will hear evidence that Richard Mallory was drinking, that he was fixing himself mixed drinks, and that he offered her a drink. You will also hear that Eileen drinks when she's out on the road. She drinks when she's on the road because it gives her courage and it keeps her from being too nervous. So she'd had some beer before she got into the car with Mr. Mallory. Then Mr. Mallory offered her some of his alcohol. And he also offered her some marijuana. He was smoking marijuana. You will hear that she told him no, that she didn't like marijuana, but it didn't bother her if he smoked, because her roommate did. But she did want a drink. She wanted to rest and have a straight shot home to Daytona. So you will hear that they continued to drink. You will hear that she was getting concerned because he was smoking so much. You will hear that he stopped at one point to get gas and that he asked her if she wanted beer. And yes, she did. She did want beer. At some point, she indicated to him that she needed to make some money for groceries.
On the next Hollywood and Crime, legendary pop stars up against the law.
I was treated like a criminal.
Diva Diana Ross lashes out at authority.
This figure came hurtling over towards me, screaming, "How do you like it?"
And was John Lennon the target of a Nixon White House conspiracy?
I call the effort to deport Lennon a rock and roll Watergate.
Plus, bad vibrations between one of the Beach Boys and his own family.
We were concerned for Brian's life.
Leader of the pack on Hollywood and Crime. Tonight at 7 on Court TV.
It's back to school time. So what are you going to give your kid to help him stand out from the crowd? Cargo pants? Tie-dye t-shirts? A really cool haircut? Here's something to consider. An affordable Dell Dimension desktop personalized by you to meet all your child's needs. Now you can get this PC loaded with a speedy Intel Pentium 3 processor and lots of educational software for only $8.99. It's even got enough power for zapping aliens and downloading music. And it's backed by our lifetime 24/7 phone and online support. To order this complete Dell Dimension system with an Intel Pentium 3 processor for $8.99, or to build your own, log on to DellForMe.com or call Dell. Will a Dell PC make your kid most popular? Probably not. But it may just make him most likely to succeed.
Mom, I have nothing to wear.
Hi, I'm Wilford Brimley for Liberty Medical. I'm a diabetic. I know how serious this disease is, but I also know a way to help control it. Check your blood sugar and check it often. And Liberty makes that easier. If you're 65 or over, on Medicare and diabetic, call Liberty right now. They're the country's largest Medicare mail-order diabetic testing supply company, and they make things simple. They bring your supplies right to your door. Then Liberty bills Medicare and your insurance company. That's right. No money up front and no more forms to fill out. Diabetes doesn't have to take over your life. Check your blood sugar. Check it often. See, there's just no reason not to. And call Liberty. They're professionals and they can help you live a better life.
For more information on free home delivery, call toll-free 1-877-891-7764.
You've put it off long enough. You know you need life insurance. Here's how to get started. Call this number, and in 5 minutes or less, you'll get a free quote on a quality policy from Protective Life Insurance Company. Less than $10 a month on a $100,000 term life policy for a 35-year-old man. And that rate's guaranteed for 10 years. So call. It's easy, and then you'll rest easier. For your free quote, call Matrix Direct. 1-800-887-8751.
Hello and welcome back to Court TV. I'm Michael Ayala. Again, we are looking at the murder trial of Eileen Wuornos, someone who FBI authorities say could be one of the first serial killers of the female gender in our country's history. She is facing murder charges for only one murder in this case, that of Richard Montgomery, a man that was found by police on the side of the road. Allegedly, he solicited sex from her. She says that the situation escalated and she was forced to defend herself. So let's go back into the courtroom for continued opening statements by her attorney, Tricia Jenkins. She's going to describe her client's version of the event. So let's go into the courtroom.
At some point, she indicated to him that she needed to make some money for groceries and for rent. And you've heard that Lee is a prostitute, and that is how Lee earns money. Mr. Mallory said he was looking for a good time, so this was perfect. They returned to Daytona. They got into Daytona late that night, and they went to a secluded area. They stayed in that area until almost 5 o'clock in the morning, talking and drinking, having fun. You will hear that Lee had decided that she could trust him. She started feeling comfortable with him. They have not been having sex up to this point. They've been talking. You will hear that Mallory had a lot of things that he wanted to talk over. He had some problems in his life. You will hear that at approximately 5 o'clock in the morning, Mallory asked Lee, "Are you ready to earn your money now?" Lee said yes. You will hear that Mr. Mallory suggested that she take off all of her clothes. That way he could be assured that she wasn't going to run away or going to rip him off. Lee, once again, as I told you before, thought that she could trust this person. So she agreed. She began to take off her clothes. At that point, Mr. Mallory says, "I'll be right back. I've got to get something out of the trunk." Lee thought that was fine. Mr. Mallory got out of the car. He opened up the trunk. Lee folded up her clothes neatly and put them in the back seat. She waited a good while. Soon she heard the trunk close. She was in darkness. Mr. Mallory opened the door. And he also opened a nightmare for Lee. This wasn't the nice, calm person. Again, he'd been smoking all night long and drinking, and Lee had been drinking also. But you will hear evidence of bondage, rape, sodomy, and degradation. And Lee was a victim to that. Ultimately, after a good period of time, Lee was able to get away from him, to pull away from him. During the period of time that she was being subjected to the abuse that Mr. Mallory was inflicting, he told her, "I've done this to other women." He wanted to see her pain. As I told you before, Lee had begun to carry a weapon. Lee had a weapon in her purse on the floorboard, on the passenger side of the front seat. Lee got that weapon, and she shot Mr. Mallory. She got out of the car. Mr. Mallory was still coming towards her. She said, "Don't come any closer. Don't come any closer, or I'll shoot again." And he was cursing at her. He was wounded. He was angry. And he said he was going to kill her. And he kept coming, and she shot him again. You hear testimony that she was terrified. She didn't know what to do. She decided she needed to get out of there. She wanted to take the car and get away. She drove his car, totally nude, frantically, driving to get away from there, to get away from the situation that she'd just been involved in. Drove for a good distance, again, nude, driving, trying to get away, running. Ultimately, she found a place to stop. She got dressed, and then she tried to figure out what to do. She knew she couldn't go to the police. She knew she couldn't tell anybody who was going to believe her. She's a prostitute. Mr. Mallory was a businessman. She knew they weren't going to believe her, so she went home. She went to her girlfriends. Actually, it was both of them were living in this motel room at the same time. They'd been living together for several years at this point. And she told her about it. And you will hear that Tyra Moore was supportive and understanding and told her that she should take care of herself, that she should defend herself, that she shouldn't be treated like that. However, you're going to hear that Ty has kind of changed her mind about that. You're going to hear that she changed her mind when there was a composite on the TV for 2 women. And you're going to hear that Ty agreed to assist law enforcement and come down to Florida and help them catch her friend and her lover. And you will hear that she did that. She came down to Daytona. Law enforcement put her in a motel, paid for all of her expenses, basically gave her whatever she wanted. Beer, food, shopping at the mall. And she stayed in that motel, wrote a letter to Lee, told her where she was going to be, and asked that she call her collect at the motel. And for a period of either 3 or 4 days, she worked on Lee to get Lee to say that she had done this and that Ty didn't have anything to do with it or didn't know about it. Finally, after Ty had threatened to kill herself, after Ty had told her that her family was being threatened, she finally convinced Lee to tell law enforcement about it. Now, you're going to be seeing a video of Lee talking to law enforcement. Contrary to what the prosecutor has told you, you are not going to hear several stories about what happened. You're going to hear her say, "I will protect Ty. I will do anything. I would even die for her." And you will hear her give one version of what occurred. And you will also hear her saying, "I was so drunk. I was just so drunk." She will say, "I was drunk royal." During the time that she was out in the woods with Mr. Mallory, her constant knowledge of impending danger was blurred by alcohol. She was really drunk. And she apologizes to law enforcement. "I'm confused. I can't remember everything. I was just so drunk." But you will hear her tell one version of what occurred out there. You will hear that he got violent with me. Ladies and gentlemen, Lee Wernes is not guilty of first-degree premeditated murder or armed robbery. She defended herself. She had had enough. Not one more time could she take it. Not one more time. Thank you.
So Tricia Jenkins there outlining her case. We will get to see that videotape a little later in the trial. Right now, though, Rob, I want to ask you, is it important that Eileen Wuornos, and just in case you don't know, Lee is Eileen Wuornos. I'm sure you figured that out by now, but she calls her Lee. That is her nickname. Is it important that she's represented by a female in this case?
I don't know. I don't really put much stock into that. Some people think that, having a female attorney is beneficial to her. It goes, either way.
Yeah, I think it's really just about good lawyering. Thus far, in her opening statement, she's laying out her theory of the case, the fact that she believes it was a self-defense case. But one interesting point that she makes is that she has to deal with the confession, because the bottom line is the confession flies in the face of that theory. And I think she skirted over it. I think she had to pay more attention to what these jurors are going to ultimately see, and that is Wuornos, in her own words, saying that she committed this crime.
Well, it's interesting because you can fight a confession in a number of different ways. One, by arguing that the police improperly influenced the client, because you have to understand that when someone comes in to speak to detectives, particularly when she's been the target of a woman hunt, and such as a case like this, it is an exceptionally coercive environment. Now, put on top of that the outside influence of her lover calling her, encouraging her, "You got to say it, you got to say it, you got to clear me." It does create a certain coercive environment. And what she's probably trying to do is she's probably trying just to convince the jury that you can't really fully believe everything that was said. In fact, they're going to try to manipulate it to show that it's inconsistent, but really when you look for the truth, and when you sort through all the other problems and you take out the coercive environment, you can show that it's consistent with what really happened.
You know, prosecutors claim that she told a couple of different stories, and we're going to get to see for ourselves. Again, the defense says you won't see her talk about a couple of different stories, so it'll be interesting to see how that shapes up. But I'm not so sure that's such a bad thing for the defense if she's telling a couple of different stories, because, again, it goes to her confusion. As we heard the defense say, there was some alcohol involved, she was confused, and she's not sure how events happened. And oftentimes, when you get involved in that life or death situation, at least as Ms. Wuornos is claiming she was in, you don't remember exactly what sequence, how things exactly happened. All you know is that the result was this and you got away.
That's where physical evidence comes in. That's where all the forensic evidence comes in, because if you have two separate stories, each very different from the other, and the physical evidence supports one. In other words, if during one of her stories she said, well, I shot him twice and that's it. And in another story she says, well, I shot him twice, then I got out of the car, moved around and shot him twice again. And the forensic evidence supports the latter version. The jury will tend to believe the latter version. And in fact, it seems that that would be the one that actually was true.
Yeah, you know, we heard a little bite from her talking about, you're looking at what I did, but you're not looking at my life. You're not looking at all the difficulties I've had, et cetera, et cetera. What role does that play? As a defense attorney, I mean, you have to consider that a trump card, because as I talked a little bit about earlier, she's had some difficulties, some serious difficulties, which almost can explain her actions to a certain degree.
Pretty amazing, and I do agree with you. I mean, jurors tend to be emotional creatures. They're human beings, and you really want them thinking about the difference between first-degree murder, second-degree murder. We think that she should go to jail for the rest of her life, but we don't think that we should put her to death. She's hitting on something that is very important in this case in terms of mitigating circumstances and should a death penalty be imposed. But even taking it further back, when the jury hears about this woman's life, it is tragic. I mean, these are horrendous, criminal, violent activities. But if you understand where she came from, you almost feel like putting members of her family on trial for letting her live this life. She was abandoned. She was brought up by grandparents who apparently had their own problems in raising kids. She was living in cars at a very early age. You know, early in her teens, she's living in cars. She's a hooker at a very early age, using drugs, turns to family members, creates problems for them, gets thrown out of their lives, and apparently she has this real, hatred for men that you almost can kind of understand, given her background. So she's hitting upon something that is very important. It's up to the jury to decide whether or not that takes away from the criminal actions.
Right. Do you take the chance and demonize the victim in this case? I mean, Mallory obviously was, I won't call him an unsavory character, but he was involved in some unsavory activities, certainly. Do you take the chance and demonize him to a certain degree to try to help towards that end as well?
Well, I think you have to, and you have to show that the nature of that particular transaction, and it was a business transaction, and that's the way it has to be viewed, is one that doesn't really lend itself to being sympathetic to the victim. Now, he's dead. He didn't deserve to die. He didn't deserve to be killed. But at the very least, what the defense is able to bring out is that this was a transaction in an isolated place involving alcohol, involving sex. He knew what he was getting himself into, and that is certainly something that you want the jury thinking about.
Yeah, again, it's just any way you can to get them to sympathize with your client can only help, especially when you're talking about a death penalty case. We're going to have much, much more in just a moment. When we come back, we're going to hear from the lover we've heard so much about, really one of the most pivotal characters in this case, Tyria Moore, a lover for about 4.5 years of Eileen Wuornos. So please, you want to stick around for that. Stay with us.
Tonight on Mugshots, he was a hobo, a drifter, living life on the rails.
I said, how could you do that? He said, well, after the first time, he says, it just got easy.
He hopped freight trains from California to Florida and left a trail of bodies wherever he went.
He would watch them until he knew the opportunity was right. He'd draw them into their little web. He'd get them.
There's a graveyard of people out there. He said, I've killed 28 people.
Robert Silvera, the boxcar killer on Mugshots, tonight at 10.
only on Court TV.
Everybody has suffered from the effects of a bad night's sleep, whether from minor back pain, heartburn, or just because you can't get comfortable. And the constant tossing and turning at night can make you feel like you're in the middle of a cliffhanger. We at Sleep Comfort want to mail you our free video and brochure showing how our adjustable bed can give you that better night's sleep you've always dreamed about. Our soothing massage and pillow top mattress gives you the feeling you're in a tropical paradise. And the dream gets better, because now adjustable beds have become affordable for everyone. With no money down, our Jubilee model is only $19 per month. And we give you 90 days to sleep on our bed with no risk. If you don't like it, send it back. So call now to receive this free video and brochure about the adjustable bed that only costs $19 per month and comes with a free 90-day in-home trial. Call now.
Call 1-800-238-6707. That's 1-800-238-6707.
My daughter doesn't know I can't pay my bills. She doesn't know about the bill collectors calling. But she does know when I am sad. And I am not sad, despite all the debt I'm in, because I found a way out.
If you have a debt problem, then call Profina Debt Solutions, the largest, most experienced credit counseling service. Profina doesn't make loans. Instead, we work with your creditors to lower your monthly payments. In just 30 minutes, over the phone, we can help you avoid bankruptcy and get the bill collectors off your back. We're a non-profit confidential service. Just get your bills together and call.
I'm solving my money problems, and I'm going to be a better mommy for it.
There is help, and it's as close as your phone. Get your bills together and call Profina Debt Solutions. It's not a loan, it's a way out of debt.
Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy. Statistically, the average serial killer is a white male from a lower to middle class background, usually in his mid-20s. But this morning, death takes on a different face and gender. We are looking at a case that the FBI considers a first of its kind, an accused female serial killer. 35-year-old Eileen Wuornos allegedly hooked up with her male victims under the guise of sex for sale. But once alone, Wuornos sometimes had sex with the men and sometimes not. But most of the time, she ended up shooting them at point-blank range. She would then dump them on the side of the road, rifling through their pockets and stealing their cars to help her along her vagabond way. Now, today, Wuornos is standing trial for only one murder. Wuornos has been known to boast that she has slept with over 250,000 men, which, if you do the math, means that she would not have had time to do much of anything else like sleep or eat for the last 20 years. I wonder if she ever came across Wilt Chamberlain during that time. As you know, he claims to have had sex with about 10,000 women. But anyway, we're going to go back to the courtroom now and continue our look at this case. The prosecution calls Tyria Moore. Now, you've heard her name thrown around a couple of times. She was a girlfriend for about 4.5 years of Eileen Wuornos, and according to Wuornos, she was the love of her life, the center of her universe. It really was perhaps an obsessive love. She becomes a central character in both the prosecution and defense, so important testimony from this witness. Let's go into the courtroom now as she begins her direct examination.
Was there a time that you lived in the state of Florida in the Daytona Beach area?
Yes.
I'd like to ask you if you know an Eileen Carol Wuornos, also known to you as Lee.
Yes, I do.
Did you know that individual under any other names?
Yes, I did.
The name Blahovic, one of the names you knew her as?
Yes.
You know her as under the name Grody?
Yes.
Did you ever know her to use the name Cammie Marsh Green?
Yes.
How was it that you knew this woman that you described as Eileen Carol Wuornos with the aliases that you told us about?
Objection to aliases. Objection overruled. Ask the question if you can.
How is it that you came to know her?
I met her in a bar.
And did there come a point in time in your life that you and she formed a relationship?
Yes, we did.
How long did that relationship last?
About 4.5 years.
And could you describe the relationship to us in regards to your living arrangements, your working arrangements, things of that nature?
Well, we lived as lovers, and I worked quite a bit, and she worked as a prostitute.
During the time that you were living with the defendant, the type of employment that you primarily engaged in was what?
Hotel work.
Did you ever engage in prostitution?
No.
Objection overruled. Go ahead.
You earned a salary?
Yes.
Went to work on a daily basis when you could find employment?
Yes.
You got a paycheck?
Yes.
Use that to support yourself and Ms. Warnos?
Yes.
And shared in the household bills?
Yes, I did.
Leading, Your Honor. Rephrase the question.
What did you do with the money that you made from working at the hotel?
I helped pay bills.
And did, during that period of time, you and Ms. Warnos live in one location throughout your relationship?
Objection, leading, Your Honor. You can answer the question. Overruled.
You can tell us.
Can you repeat, please?
During the 4 years that you lived together, you were always in one place, or did you move about?
We moved around a lot.
I'd like to take you back to December the 1st of 1989. Do you recall where you were living at that time?
At the Ocean Shores Motel in Ormond Beach.
And how long had you been at the Ocean Shores Motel on that occasion?
Approximately a month.
And did there come a time that you left the Ocean Shore Motel and moved to another location?
Yes, there did.
And can you tell us about when that occurred?
The 1st of December.
The same day that we're talking about.
Right.
Now, during that period of time, you see Aileen Warnos on December the 1st, 1989?
Yes, I did.
And were you two living together at that time?
Yes, we were.
Okay, where were you when you first saw her? And can you describe to us, were you both at home at the same time, or did you come home from work, or were you going to work, or was she coming back from the location?
No, I was in bed. It was early in the morning when she came in, and I was still sleeping.
Did you have a job at that time?
Yes, I did.
And what time did you have to go to work?
I believe it was 9 o'clock.
And did you go to work on that date, if you recall?
Yes, I did.
Well, before you went to work, did you have occasion to wake up? Obviously.
Yes, Lee came in.
Okay. Can you describe to us what, if anything, occurred, or what, if anything, you spoke about when she came in?
Well, she came in and she had a car outside and said that we were going to move. And we moved that day.
Where did you move?
To Burley Avenue in Holly Hill.
Now, when you moved, can you describe, if you would, what type of vehicle it was that you moved with? And first of all, was it your car?
No.
Did you ever see that car before that day?
No, I hadn't.
Did you ever see that car after that date?
A photograph of it.
But physically, in Ms. Warno's possession of your own?
No, I never saw it after that day.
Now, before you moved, did you have to get ready to move? I mean, were you expecting to move on that date?
Not on that particular day, no.
Okay, were your bags packed and ready to go?
There was some things packed because we had planned on moving.
And can you describe to us what, if anything, occurred during the process of your moving?
We took all of our possessions and put them in the car and moved them over to Burley Avenue.
Did the defendant, Ms. Warnos, tell you at that time where she had been during the morning hours before you woke up?
No.
Did she tell you about anything that had happened?
No.
Did she say anything to her, to you about anything odd happening or anything horrible happening?
Objection, asked and answered, and leave, Your Honor. You can answer the question, can you?
No.
And was the move pretty much a routine move from the Ocean Shore Motel to the Burley Avenue address?
Yes.
During that time, can you tell us how you got there? Did you use this particular vehicle we're talking about?
Yes, we did.
And who drove?
Go ahead, answer the question.
Who drove the car?
Lee did.
And can you describe how she was driving?
Just regularly driving.
Nothing abnormal about it?
No.
Can you describe it, if you will, please? Describe Lee Warnos as you observed her after you woke up, before you moved to the Burley Avenue from the Ocean Shore Motel. As best you can, what do you recall that morning to be like, in your own words?
Very busy, getting stuff out of the motel room, moving it into the car. She seemed fine. She was able to help. You know, she helped me pack the rest of the stuff, and we both packed the car.
Did she seem to you as if she'd been drinking?
Yeah, I knew she had been drinking. I could smell it on her.
Is that the fact that you could smell alcohol on her seem to be affecting her behavior?
Not really.
When you spoke to each other, did she seem to answer you back in a coherent fashion? And you understand her speech pattern?
Yeah.
Was there anything about her actions that morning that you could tell this jury about that was out of the ordinary for the relationship that you and she had at that time of your life?
Not that I recall.
And then did you accomplish that move that morning and go to the Burley Avenue?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you do after you got to the Burley Avenue address? Did you unpack your bags?
No, because I had to go to work.
Okay. And did Ms. Warnos say anything about the car, how she had gotten it at that point, or what she needed to do with it?
No.
How did you get to it?
I rode our moped that we had.
Okay. And who had the car?
Lee did.
Did you see what Lee did with the car? In other words, was the car still at the Burley Avenue address when you left, or had she already driven home?
Well, she had to take me back up to the Ocean Shore Motel to get the moped because it was still up there.
And did she drive you back from the Burley Avenue to the Ocean Shore?
Yes.
And during that period of time, did you have any difficulty driving?
No.
Did she tell you anything out of the ordinary about how the last couple of days of your life had been, or the night before?
Objection, leading has to go. Overruled.
Did you say anything about what had been going on, say, within the last 24 hours of her life?
No.
Now, did there come a point then that you took the moped and you went off to work?
Yes, I did.
And how late did you stay at work that day, if you recall?
I believe I was working 9 to 5 at that time.
And after you got off work, where did you go?
To the Burley Avenue house.
At that time, did you see that same automobile again that you had used to move?
No.
Did you ever physically see it again after you went off, as Lee took you to the hotel to pick up the moped?
No.
When you got home, was there anyone present at the apartment? Was it a home or an apartment?
It was a garage converted into an apartment, so I guess it was...
Was anyone there when you got back?
I don't remember. I don't believe so.
Okay. Did there come a point in time that evening when you saw Lee Warnos again?
Yes.
Can you describe how that came about?
I don't remember. I really don't remember if she was home when I got home from work or if she came in later.
Anything occurred when she came home? Out of the ordinary?
Later that evening, I know we were sitting watching TV, and she told me she had something to tell me.
Hey, can you describe how she was acting when she, before you tell us what she told you, where was she and where were you, if you remember? What were you all doing? Just watching TV?
We were sitting on the floor watching TV.
Okay. Were there anything unusual going on at that time, other than just sitting there in an apartment together watching some TV?
No.
Okay. Can you describe her appearance at that time?
She seemed fine.
Was there anything particularly different or the same about her as when you had left her to go to work?
She was the same.
Same basic physical appearance?
Yes.
She told you that there was something that she wanted to tell you?
Correct.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how that conversation began and what transpired?
We were sitting on the floor watching TV, and she just come out and said, "I have something to tell you." And I asked her what, And she said that she had shot and killed a man that day.
Did you say anything to her when she told you that?
No, I didn't want to believe it. I was probably in awe.
Did you say anything to her? Like, I don't believe you, or what, I don't want to use vulgarity. I mean, what's going on here?
I'm sure I probably replied something.
On Crier Today, the sex industry's money-making run with credit card users may come to an end. We'll find out why when Larry Flint's daughter joins us live. Plus, a mother's riveting story of her twin son serving more than 15 years behind bars for cocaine distribution. She claims they were framed. And Sheriff Joe Arpaio, live from the GOP National Convention in Philadelphia. Join me for Crier Today at 1 p.m. only on Court TV.
This is the notebook that has the button that gets you on the web at the speed of an Intel Pentium 3 processor. With graphics that come to life on a brilliant 14-inch screen so you can see the whole world wider. This is the ultra-thin, ultra-cool Compact Presario 1700T that for just $19.99 takes you virtually everywhere. Call toll-free 1-877-801-7163 and add a compact IJ300 color printer for $1.
If you've ever missed a phone call when you were online, Sprint's got a great new way to stay in touch. Introducing Sprint 1000 with Sprint Internet Call Waiting. Just switch to Sprint 1000 at 1-800-PIN-DROP, and you can get 1,000 minutes of long distance for just $20 a month. That's as low as 2 cents a minute. And when you sign up now, you'll get free Sprint Internet Call Waiting, so you'll never miss an incoming call when you're online. No need for a second phone line. Answer it or take a message. The choice is yours. And with Sprint 1000 nights, there are no surprises. You can call all night long, 7 days a week, for as low as 2 cents a minute. Plus, you'll get free Sprint Internet Call Waiting. Solutions by Nortel Networks. To laugh, to chat, to stay connected. It's an offer too good to pass up.
That's the power of two. Anything more would be too much. Call now and get free Sprint Internet Call Waiting and never miss another call when you're online. Call 1-800-PIN-DROP now.
I'm a pollen dust dog.
I'm a cat, pine, bunny.
I'm a grass mold marigold.
Allergens are everywhere, but there's only one leading prescription antihistamine approved to treat both year-round indoor and outdoor allergies, Zyrtec. With Zyrtec, you'll be going places again, outdoors and indoors. First, go to the phone. Call 1-800-936-3936 now. You'll get an information package that tells you about allergies and a $10 rebate offer on a Zyrtec prescription. In studies, drowsiness was the most common side effect. Others included fatigue and dry mouth. Most side effects were mild or moderate. Most people weren't bothered by them enough to stop taking Zyrtec. Talk to your doctor to learn about prescription Zyrtec. With Zyrtec, today's dust, dander, pollen could be tomorrow's hiker, biker, dog lover. Call now to get your $10 rebate offer. Zyrtec. Lots of allergies, just one pill. Starts with just one call.
Hello and welcome back to Court TV. We have been watching Eileen Wuornos's girlfriend, or former girlfriend at this point, I am sure, on the stand talking about conversations that she had with Eileen Wuornos. Again, Eileen Wuornos has confessed to a few killings, about 7 in all, but this particular killing, the killing of which she is on trial for and facing the death penalty for, that of Richard Montgomery, she allegedly told Tyra Moore about her killing and about the situation with Mr. Moore. So let's go back into the courtroom. She's going to continue telling the details that Eileen Wuornos told her. So let's go back to the court for her continued direct examination.
Did you ask her anything about what she had just told you, that she had shot a man?
I don't believe I asked her any questions about it. I might have replied something like, I don't believe you, or something along that line.
Did she say anything else at that point?
Yeah, later she was telling me that she had put the body in the woods under a piece of rug, and that she had dropped a car off up in Ormond Beach around John Anderson Drive.
Did she tell you that the man she had shot, she had taken his car, and that was the car you used to move with?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled. Did she tell you anything about the car in relationship to the man she had shot?
I believe she did at one point.
Was it your understanding, based upon what she was telling you, that it had been the man that had gotten shot, whose car you guys had been in that day?
Yes, it was.
Did she tell you anything about why she shot the man?
No.
Now, during that evening, as this conversation was going on, did you continue to watch TV?
Yes, I believe so.
Did the defendant continue to watch TV after she told you she just shot a man and had taken his car? You had been in it?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Can you repeat the question, please?
I'm trying to understand what is happening in that apartment, in that garage, as you're being told by this defendant that she shot a man. Can you just describe that in your own words?
We were just sitting around watching TV, drinking a few beers. It was
That's
a
when she told
typical evening.
Now, when you packed up to move to the Burley Avenue, did you pretty much know what kind of articles you each owned? You've been living together for how long at that point?
At that point, it was approximately 3.5 years.
And did Ms. Warnos have any articles at that time, that evening, that were not something that you had seen before?
Yes.
Can you describe to the jury how you noticed that, you made that observation?
Well, I knew that they didn't belong to us.
Okay, can you describe what you saw?
There's only a few things that I can really remember from the particular cars because she'd given me a jacket and a scarf. And
Let's talk specifically about what you remember. Don't speculate. Try it as best you can. What do you remember seeing, and what do you remember about that evening?
I remember a box with a bunch of papers in it.
Did you look at the papers at all, or see anything, or notice anything about them?
I wasn't really paying attention. She was going through them, and she tried to show me a piece of paper and a picture of somebody, and I didn't want to look at it.
Did she tell you that the picture was the man she had shot?
I believe she did.
So damaging testimony, depending, of course, on your point of view, but I think the defense will have a difficult time, Rob, trying to fashion that into their theory of this case, because certainly had she been in fear of her life, as she's claiming, Eileen Wuornos is claiming, why would she then come home, and if we are to believe this particular witness, why would she not then come home and explain what happened in that fashion? Didn't seem that she did that.
Well, you have to understand the nature of their relationship. And you're obviously not dealing with two professors at Columbia University. You're dealing with someone who is on trial here who has severe problems. It seems like the witness also has some severe problems, and we don't really fully understand the nature of their relationship and what their conversations tended to be like. Yes, I agree with your point. In other words, if she was threatened, if she was in danger, she would come home and probably say, you know, this happened to me, you know, I was terrified, and whatnot. You certainly would expect that.
Yeah. Now, if she didn't do that, is there a way, I mean, how do you go about, as you mentioned, bringing out this fact that there is this interesting dynamic in their relationship and there might be these problems? As a defense attorney, how do you begin to bring that out when you begin to cross-examine this witness?
Well, anything that you want to bring out from this witness, you may very well be able to get, because she doesn't seem like she would really be able to defend herself all that well. What you can do is called an informational cross-examination, and what that is a series of statements or questions in which you just have the witness responding in a yes or no fashion, in which you can, you know, talk about the relationship, and, you know, she was dominant and she told you a lot, or she didn't tell you a lot. You could pretty much get whatever you want out of this witness that way.
You know, she's interesting, the fact that she's even on the stand, her relationship with the law enforcement in trying to get this prosecution together against Eileen Wuornos. They put her up in a cottage. They had her make phone calls to Wuornos and basically, or at least the defense would say, coerce her into telling her what had happened. She says, I will kill myself if you don't tell me what's going on, et cetera, et cetera. I think the defense has a pretty good argument that that was a bit of witness tampering, and also perhaps any confessions that came out of that type of thing could be coerced or could be considered coerced.
I don't know if I would consider it coerced. I don't know if that's the word that I would use. I think that it's clear that she was tricked it's clear that her lover was on Team America working with the government and set this whole thing up, the defense would argue then that the defendant actually made statements beyond what had taken place in an attempt to cause her not to kill herself, in an attempt to, protect her. But at the same time, the way the government approaches cases like this is they sit back and they say, well, look, if we could have anybody in the world as a witness for us, warts and all, who would we want? Well, we would want her lover because she was there during all these events. And you know what? They have her. And that's why it's hard to defend, in situations like this. And, the defense attorneys are going to cross-examine this witness. At the same time, she doesn't seem to have the ability to spin intricate lies. And so that makes her a much more believable witness, in front of a jury.
Yeah, but it's not terribly intricate, her lie, if it is a lie. But the thing is, wouldn't she be guilty of something as well? She could be facing some problems of her own if she doesn't come in and tell prosecutors or tell the court what they want to hear, correct? So that could always be used against her.
If she did anything after the crime, or either before, during, or after the crime, to aid or abet the commission of the crime.
Let's say she just had the knowledge of it and didn't go to the authorities.
That's very difficult. It just, mere knowledge without taking any type of step to assist the perpetrator of the crime is not in and of itself a crime. Yeah. But, it's not beyond the pale of what prosecutors do to say, well, you knew about it and you actually helped her move to a different hotel, let's say. Right. And that helped her get away in case the police were on her trail. And you knew that she had just told you that she had just, shot a man several times. You knew she basically had committed a crime, and you suggested to her, I've heard it said, right, you've suggested to her that maybe we shouldn't be here anymore. And I've seen prosecutors go after witnesses and threaten and intimidate and harass them along those lines. It seems like we're in a different situation here because, this young woman seemed to come forward under some pressure, but at the same time, she seemed to reach a decision in her mind that maybe this was not a woman, meaning the defendant, this was not a woman that I should spend any more time with.
I don't know if I agree with that, Rob. I think she may have even, I'm not convinced that she's not part and parcel with this whole thing, saying, Eileen, you go out and do these things, taking advantage of the fact that Eileen Wuornos perhaps was obsessively in love with her. You go out and do these things to help support us and do our thing, and we'll keep moving across the country. I'm not so sure she wasn't a part of it in that sense. But again, all these things will come to light as we continue to take a look at this trial over the next couple of days. Right now, though, we do need to take this break. But first, a little programming note. Tonight on Pros and Cons, is the electric chair a torture device? An Italian exhibit puts it in the same class as the body-piercing device, the Iron Maiden. But what do Americans have to say about it? We'll find out tonight. And also, is your partner cheating in cyberspace? It's happening more and more. Now you can bust them with the new website, infidelitybusters.com. For a $50 fee, they'll reel in your straying lover. Be sure to join Helen Lukatis tonight for these and lots more on Pros and Cons tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Time right here on Court TV. We'll be back with more. Please stay with us.
TV tonight.
There's a sniper on the roof!
They thought he was dead. They were dead wrong. The conclusion of City Under Siege, tonight at 8 and midnight. Some desire fame. Some want thrills. Some are filled with hate. Court TV presents 5 mugshots of murderers among us.
He felt that Satan would always protect him. He'd never get caught.
On Serial Killers Week, continues tonight at 10.
This week, stars who made it to the top.
Cars, cash, women,
and came crashing down.
I couldn't put the fires out.
Catch 5 nights of back-to-back Hollywood and crime.
I'm back and I am back.
This week, beginning at 7, only on Court TV.
Hear what parents are saying about the most famous name in reading, Hooked on Phonics.
You should have seen him the first time he had one of the Hooked on Phonics books. He was running through the house. He was celebrating. Look, wait a minute. Sit down. I want to read this book to you.
Hooked on Phonics guarantees you'll see an improvement in your child's reading in 4 weeks or your money back. You'll also receive the World Book Encyclopedia on CD-ROM. Call 1-800-ABCDEFG to give your child the Hooked on Phonics head start.
It's back to school time. So what are you going to give your kid to help him stand out from the crowd? Cargo pants, tie-dye t-shirts, a really cool haircut? Here's something to consider. An affordable Dell Dimension desktop personalized by you to meet all your child's needs. Now you can get this PC loaded with a speedy Intel Pentium 3 processor and lots of educational software for only $8.99. It's even got enough power for zapping aliens and downloading music. And it's backed by our lifetime 24/7 phone and online support. To order this complete Dell Dimension system with an Intel Pentium 3 processor for $8.99 or to build your own, log on to dellforme.com or call Dell. Will a Dell PC make your kid most popular? Probably not. But it may just make him most likely to succeed.
Mom, I have nothing to wear.
Want to learn a secret about long distance? Let's compare those prices again. AT&T, 7 cents. IDT, just a nickel. Sprint charges 10 cents on weekdays, and MCI charges a quarter, while IDT charges one flat rate all the time. 5 cents a minute, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Switch today and save a few, switch today and save a few bucks. IDT long distance. No one does it for less.
What happened on a dark December night in 1989 left Richard Mallory dead and has landed Eileen Wuornos in court, charged with his murder. Now, welcome back to Court TV. I'm Michael Ayala. Eileen Wuornos could become the first known female serial killer on Florida highways. She would hitch rides and proposition the men who picked her up. By her own account, 7 of them ended up dead. Now, Wuornos stands trial for the murder of one of her victims, Richard Mallory. The defense claims Wuornos shot Mallory in self-defense, but the argument fades against Wuornos' long line of victims, her girlfriend's testimony, and her own confession to police, all of which we will see in this trial. Now, we will return to the courtroom in just a moment, but first, let's check into the Court TV News Center once again, where Helen Lukatis is standing by with the latest legal news. Good morning once again.
Good morning, Michael, and good morning, everyone. As Republican delegates prepare to hear from their vice presidential nominee at the convention tonight, protesters are expected to once again hit the streets of Philadelphia. Yesterday, some 280 demonstrators were arrested, but caused little convenience for convention goers. A number of officers and protesters suffered minor injuries in the clashes, including City Police Commissioner John Timoney, who had a bike thrown at him. Police in Boulder, Colorado are going to take a second look at evidence in the JonBenet Ramsey case. They're running tests to see if there's a connection between JonBenet's murder and an attempted sexual assault on another girl months later. A 14-year-old girl who attended the same dance academy as JonBenet was assaulted in her bed in 1997. The Boulder police chief says he doubts there's a connection. The Ramsey parents remain under suspicion in the murder of their daughter. And now we're asking you to get involved with our story of the day by answering the 13th Juror News question. Could the sexual assault of a Boulder teenager be linked to JonBenet's murder? Well, so far, 43% of you are saying yes, but 57% disagree and are voting no. And you too can log on to Court TV's website at courttv.com and cast your vote. We will be updating you with those results throughout the day. A Florida mother is arrested after forcing her daughter at gunpoint to drive to a women's clinic to get an abortion. Although the girl did not have the procedure, police still charged Glenda Dowis with aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and domestic violence. Police say they received a 911 call yesterday from the Aware Woman Medical Center in Lake Claire Shores, alleging Dowis was armed and threatening her daughter. A gun control study out today by the Journal of the American Medical Association is causing heated debate in Washington. The report takes aim at the Brady Law, finding that murder and suicide rates did not drop any faster in states that increased gun control to comply with the law. The NRA is using the report to support its claim that tougher gun laws are not needed. Gun control advocates say that the study is not an appropriate measure of the Brady Law's effectiveness. A federal agency has reportedly received complaints of 21 deaths in accidents caused by peeling tire treads on Firestone tires. A watchdog group and lawyers involved in lawsuits against Firestone and Ford, which uses the tires on its Explorer model, say the number of deaths caused by tire separation problems is even higher. Firestone has manufactured more than 48 million of the ATX2 and Wilderness tires in question and says it has full confidence in them. And that's all for now. From the Court TV News Center, I'm Helen Lukatis. Now let's go back to Michael Ayala in the studio. Michael?
Thank you very much, Helen. Again, we are looking at the murder trial of Eileen Wuornos. On the stand, facing direct examination by the prosecution, is her former girlfriend, Tyra Moore. And again, she is talking about some confessions made to her from Eileen Wuornos, talking about the murder of Richard Montgomery. And something that we talked about just before the break, my guest and I, was the fact that it would hurt the defense that Eileen Wuornos did not mention that she had been she had allegedly been raped or tried. There was an attempted rape, and that she responded by killing an individual. She just talks about killing him, doesn't talk about all the other stuff. And now the prosecutor is going to bring that very fact to light for this jury. So let's go back into the courtroom.
You know what she did with the picture of the man she said she had shot?
And I believe that was part of the things that she threw away.
Man, let me show you what has been marked for identification purpose as states 00 for identification.
Counsel, you read this back.
Right, that item has been previously provided in discovery to counsel in form of photographic copies.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That'd be rough part for identification.
Your Honor, for the record, it is states 00 for identification. Ma'am, I realize that you can't see a serial number or a tag or anything on that car, but can you describe to the jury whether or not the vehicle exhibited states 00 for identification, when it is that you last saw a car looking like that was in possession of Eileen Wuornos?
It was the car that we used to move with on December 1st.
Now, can you describe anything that you recall about the car as you saw it in the possession of Eileen Wuornos?
I remember a tag that was on the front of it. It was a Gator tag. It said the Gators across it. And I knew it had tinted windows. I remembered that. I don't remember any other specific things about it.
Did there come a point in time when, strike that, Your Honor, court's permission. Ms. Moore, how long did you remain living with the defendant after she told you she had shot this man on December the 1st, 1989?
Approximately a year.
At any time during the period of that relationship, as lovers, as roommates, as friends, did she ever advise you that the man she had shot had done anything to her?
No, she didn't.
Did she ever suggest that she had been raped by this man?
Objection asked and answered, Your Honor. Objection overruled.
Did she ever say anything?
No.
Did she ever give you an explanation as to why she had shot the man?
No.
Did you, during that period of time, talk about many things with her?
Yes, we talked quite a bit.
Was this a relationship, a close relationship between you?
I believe it was.
And she never, ever suggested that the man she told you she shot December the 1st and used his car to move to the Burley Avenue had done anything to her on the morning of December the 1st, 1989, did you?
Objection asked and answered.
You can answer that, ma'am.
No.
Your Honor, may I have just one moment?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, back on December the 1st, 1989, did you know what type of profession Ms. Warnos was using to earn a living?
Yes, I did.
And during the period of time when you first met her and you began living together, did you have any other occupations as a mainstay of the way she earned a living?
No.
During that period of time, from the time that she told you that she shot the man on December the 1st, 1989, back to when you first met her, did she ever indicate to you that she had been beaten and raped and robbed by people that she was going out and prostituting herself to while you two lived together?
No.
Do you know if on December the 1st, 1989, Aileen Carol Warnos owned a firearm?
Yes.
Had you ever seen her with a gun?
Yes.
Did she tell you why she'd gotten the gun?
She said it was for her protection because she hitchhiked.
Did she say what she would do with that gun if anyone messed with her?
I don't remember.
Do you see the defendant, Aileen Carol Warnos, in this courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
Could you point her out to the record, please?
Stipulated, Your Honor.
Please, the court, I'd like the witness to identify. Okay, proceed. Ma'am, can you please point her out if you can, please?
She's sitting right there.
Can you describe what she's wearing?
Stipulated at the end of the counsel table, Your Honor. Satisfactory to the court.
May the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Aileen Carol Warnos.
Stipulated again, Your Honor.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you. Very quiet.
All right, that does it for the prosecution. On the other side, we're going to see how the defense handles some of that, what was really damaging information. So please stay with us, and we'll check that out on the other side.
On the next Hollywood and Crime, child star Danny Bonaducci descended into a reckless path of self-destruction.
Here's pretty much how the career goes. Partridge Family, busted, rehab.
Then, this once wholesome mouseketeer ended up a convicted felon.
The defendant was charged with conspiracy and perjury.
And shattered dreams for teen pop group In Sync.
They should have shared the wealth with the kids.
Innocence Lost on the next Hollywood and Crime. Tonight at 7:30 on Court TV.
Now, every time you brush, you can get a massage. The new Crest Advanced Care toothbrush has multi-level cleaning bristles, plus soft massaging tips to help keep gums healthy. New Advanced Care from Crest.
When Annie came home from school with head lice, we were horrified. Then I found Rid.
Rid kills lice completely, and unlike some others, it leaves no chemical residue.
Lice are gone. Everyone's happy.
Maximum strength Rid. Nothing is more effective.
This is the PC that led to a website that came to life on a bright, vivid monitor that triggered a question that went round the world at the speed of an Intel Pentium 3 processor, that created a friendship, that inspired an idea, that opened more than one set of eyes. This is the compact Presario 5000T with one-touch internet access that can lead to great things. Call Compaq at 1-800-329-9351 and get the PC and monitor for just $8.99. And who knows where your kids will end up, because this is the PC that fuels the imagination that lets your kids see the whole world wider. The Compaq Presario 5000T with Intel Pentium 3 processor. Call 1-800-329-9351 and add a Compaq IJ300 color printer for $1.
The S&P 500, your portfolio. In the next 12 months, which will come out on top? With the right advice and research, there's no telling how well you can perform. Call Solomon Smith Barney at 1-800-EARNS-IT, extension 409, and see how we can help you stay ahead of the market. Get your free special report, 10+ stocks for $2,000. You'll learn which 15 stocks we believe will outperform the S&P 500 over the next 12 months. Which of these stocks have the most earnings potential, the highest yields, and which reflect developing trends. Our 10+ stock list comes with the perspective of Solomon Smith Barney's award-winning analysts. 10+ has beaten the S&P 500 5 of the last 6 years. It's information you have to have. See how our experts plan to beat the S&P 500. Call 1-800-EARNS-IT, extension 409 for your special report today. See how we earn it. Solomon Smith Barney.
Hello and welcome back to Court TV. I'm Michael Ayala. I'm not going to waste too much time because I can't wait to see how the defense handles Tyra Moore. She's the former girlfriend of Eileen Wuornos, the woman on trial for murder here and facing the death penalty, who the FBI calls one of the first real female serial killers in our country's history. So let's go back into the courtroom now as the defense begins their cross-examination. And they're going to want to talk about some of the issues in the relationship that may have turned into something a lot different, talking about how they related to each other, how protective they were of one another, et cetera, et cetera. So let's go into the courtroom to find this out.
And you knew that she was a prostitute, as Mr. Moore pointed out, throughout the entire time that you were living.
Correct.
And you knew that at least 3 times a week she was prostituted.
At least, yeah, I'd say.
And you've talked about the fact that you shared in some of the expenses of the home and things like that, that you worked from time to time. In fact, during that 4.5 years, approximately half that time you were unemployed. Isn't that true?
I really don't know.
Well, there were numerous times when you were unemployed.
I wouldn't say numerous. There was a couple months at a time I would go without jobs.
And when you went those couple of months at a time without jobs, Lee supported you, didn't she?
Yes.
And she contributed to the household when you were working.
Yes.
Lee rarely told you much about work. Would that be fair to say?
Correct.
And that was in part because you told her you didn't want to hear it. Isn't that true?
Yes.
You didn't want to hear it because you were jealous of her work. Isn't that true?
I didn't want her to do it.
You didn't want to share her with other men. Isn't that true?
That's true.
And from what Lee did tell you, life on the road in her job was in fact dangerous. She told you that, didn't she?
Yes.
And she did tell you that she'd been raped and beaten, didn't she?
It was before I met her that she had been raped and beaten. But
She did tell you that she'd been raped and beaten.
Yes.
And she said that that had happened on more than one occasion.
Correct.
In fact, she said one time she was beaten so severely that she couldn't even recognize her face.
Objection, Judge, if we can establish when this occurred, and hearsay. Lay for the predicate, sir. The objection will be sustained until the predicate.
While you were living with her, you recall her telling you of an occasion where she'd been beaten very severely.
Objection, Your Honor. If we can establish when this supposedly happened, and also it's hearsay. Lay for the predicate.
Let me ask you this. She did tell you that nearly every single day that she was prostituting, somebody was rough or abusive with her, didn't she?
No.
She told you that people were abusive and mean to her in her work.
Verbally.
Every day, at least one person.
Verbally.
Verbally abused.
Verbally abused.
Ms. Moore, you also know that Lee drank a lot, don't you?
Yes.
And that she drank most nights. Right? And while you didn't drink as much as she did, you drank beer just about nightly, right?
Whenever she would have it, yes, I'd probably drink a few.
Okay. You can hold your beer pretty well, can't you?
Sometimes.
But Lee, when she drank a whole lot, she would get kind of moody sometimes.
Yes.
And you could tell when she was drinking a lot, couldn't you?
Yes.
Because you knew her real well.
Right.
And sometimes Lee drank as much as even a case in a night, didn't she?
Yes.
And on a couple of occasions, she would go on a binge where she would drink that much for more than one day.
Correct.
With just a couple hours of sleep.
Right.
But during these times,
No.
you argued with her, of course.
Yes.
As any roommates would.
Right.
Overall, Lee Werniss was very protective of you, wasn't she?
Yes.
She loved you, didn't she?
Yes.
She said she'd do anything for you, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
And she said this to you on numerous occasions.
Correct.
She even said she'd die for you, didn't she, Don?
Yes.
And she said that over and over again, didn't she?
I'm sure she said it more than once.
She, in fact, said it many times.
Objection, Your Honor. Self-serving hearsay. I think the jury got the point that they had a loving relationship.
Objection to the statement, Your Honor. Go ahead and answer questions, and you want me to sort these answers out or ignore them? I mean, the objections they're getting. Go ahead.
It was, in fact, much more than a couple of times, wasn't it?
It could have been.
Do you recall giving the deposition this morning?
Yes, I did.
Page, please, counsel.
Page 159 and 160.
What date? We have a date.
159 and 160.
What day?
I'm going to get to that.
Talking about when was the deposition?
I understand. The deposition was given on November 22nd, 1991 at 1:15 p.m. You recall that deposition, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
And you recall that Ms. Jenkins and Mr. Nolas were present?
Yes, I do.
And do you recall that Mr. Demore was there as well?
Yes.
And you recall being asked the question, and I'm talking about line 4, Counselor, and you recall also that she said she would die for you, and your answer was she said
Objection, Your
that.
Honor. Please, the court. First of all, it's improper. If it's attempting to impeach, it's improper. The witness has answered the question. You don't read a deposition into the register.
If you were asked a question, you should give an answer at last minute of the law.
You recall the deposition?
Yes, I do.
You were placed under oath.
Yes, I was.
You swore to tell the truth.
Yes.
Just as you did here in court today.
Correct.
You were asked the question, and you recall also that she said, referring to Eileen.
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection is overruled if he's reading a question. It appears to the court that that's what he did.
That is what I'm doing. And you recall also that she said, referring to Eileen, that she would die for you. You remember being asked that question?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember your answer?
I'm sure I answered it that she had told me that before.
No, your answer was?
Objection, Your Honor.
Yes, read the answer. The answer, she said that throughout our whole relationship. She said that throughout our whole relationship, too. So, you remember saying that?
No, I don't, but if it's there, I said it. And I'm sure she said it more than once.
She said that throughout your whole relationship, didn't she?
Okay.
4.5 years.
Okay.
All right, William Miller there doing the questioning. Robert ALTCHILER here in the studio doing the Wednesday morning quarterbacking for Court TV. Let me ask you this. We see him there going from a deposition. Interesting point there about the practice of law in Florida in criminal cases. Now, here in New York, you get to do that in civil cases, but not in criminal cases. You get to depose witnesses. You get to talk to them, interview them prior to trial. Interesting difference, important difference in a case like that. Helps out a defense attorney, helps out all the lawyers a lot, does it not?
Wow. If we could get that in New York. It's just amazing, because what we get in New York is we get the information that our investigators can uncover, and then at the time of jury selection, we get police reports. So it's almost like you're going in somewhat blind. And in Florida, you get reports and you get the testimony in advance. It is just an enormous advantage.
Yeah. He still seemed to be searching, though, and that's probably a tactic. And you tell me, there were a couple of questions there. For instance, so she said this to you, didn't she? So she said this to you, didn't she? Now, if he had a chance to talk to her and interview her before she came to court, he would know answers to those questions. But he was asking them to get kind of the words out there, even though the witness said no, she never said those things to me.
Right. Well, he's trying to have an impact on the jury just through his questions as well. And at the same time, if he knows that something was actually said during the deposition and she's going to contradict herself, then he uses it as an opportunity to show the jury that she's not being completely truthful. Yeah. But he's also, you know, as we discussed earlier, he's also using this as an opportunity to do an informational cross to let the jury know that the defendant charged with this, you know, serious murder also had a different side. She was caring, she was compassionate, she was loving, she was protective. The protective end comes in, and it also ties in with the questions that he was just asking concerning she would die for you. When it comes down to what was happening in that hotel room when there was a conversation in which the defendant was being told that the witness was suicidal. Right. So what would the defendant do? Is the defendant willing to fall on her own sword? Would she be willing to make a confession better than it ordinarily would be because she thought that her lover was inclined to kill herself? Yeah. And that's probably where the defense is going with that, at least in part.
Yeah, you know, there was an interesting interaction there between the defense attorney there and Tyra Moore, and that has to do with when he was asking her about, she had told you that he says to the witness, Eileen Wuornos told you that every time she went out to do what she did, and you knew what she was doing, she said she was abused. She makes sure to correct him and say, verbally, not physically. The first thing that came to my mind was that she was working for the prosecution and didn't want there to be any misconception or any confusion because it might affect whatever deal or whatever, conversations that she had with the prosecution. That was the first thing that ran through my mind. What about yourself?
It's hard to be a witness. It really is, especially for someone like Miss Moore, who hasn't done this before. You're up there, you're testifying in front of other people, and there are expectations. You have your own expectations. You have your own desires. You're trying to get into the minds of the prosecutors whose team you're on. You have to deal with their expectations as well. And this is how a witness can hurt your case by trying to help. In a situation like that, where the defendant has told her that she has been raped and she has been attacked, and the witness has also acknowledged that the defendant told her that this was a dangerous business and that every time out there, you know, any reasonable person would know that there is some danger in being out there by yourself, having sex with truckers and other people paying, but then to come back and say, well, she only told me that she had been verbally abused, there's really just no need for that kind of hedge. And I think that hurts her. I don't think it destroys her or cripples her by any means, but in that regard, I think you're right. I think that she's trying to find out where she's supposed to be instead of just trying to let it flow.
Yeah, and certainly at its worst, it raises questions with the jury. Well, Rob, I want to thank you very much for being with me this morning. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Unfortunately, our time is up, and my original words still stand. If I'm ever in trouble, you are the guy I'm going to call, man. I'm definitely serious about that. The first guy you're going to call, right?
I got promoted.
All right. Well, anyway, right now we're going to have to end this and wrap this up. June Grasso will be taking the anchor chair, taking you through the rest of the afternoon. Again, we'll be covering this trial over the next couple of days, so you'll want to stick with us. Much, much more to come right here on Court TV.